right, Jimmy Lamb
Okay.
from Sawgrass. Thank you so much for joining us
That's me.
today. And yeah, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you. So everybody, what I'm going to do is a little different, I guess. I wasn't sure that I would be able to make this live, so I pre-recorded my session, and I'm going to play that back, and then I could theoretically eat lunch, but I've already eaten lunch. But I'm going to play it back, so I would ask that you actually just hold your questions until we get to the end. The presentation will be about 23 minutes long, and then that gives us time for questions. And then I'll do my best to answer all the questions. Because I've already seen a couple of questions come in, like does the Sawgrass SG1000 use any other inks besides CMYK? No, that's all you can put in there is CMYK. But anyway, but if you hold them to the end, I would appreciate that. So without further ado, I'm going to, I'm sharing my screen already, but give me a moment. Well, I'm getting ready to share the screen, sharing my video. And I'm going to pull up that video and you get to watch me there as well. So let's find out where it is on all of this. We don't want that. We don't want that. I just had to find the file. So give me just a moment here because it's not showing up in my choices. So let me do something else. I'm going to minimize that. Let's bring that one up. Okay. Go back in here. And now let's try to share again. And this time I see it. So we're going to share this, and I'm going to do a real quick test here, and I just want you guys, any one of you, just to make sure that the sound of the video comes through, okay? So here I'm going to do a little start.
Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy Lamb from Sawgrass, and today we're going to...
Were you able to hear the video on the actual
Yep.
video, the audio on the video? Yes.
Yep. You are
okay, great. So, and look at that, I'm wearing the same shirt. Okay, so here we go.
Talk about the right way to sublimate a t-shirt. Now, I'm an apparel guy. I've been doing apparel for many years, a lot of different forms of decoration. But I will tell you this, when it comes to sublimation, this is my favorite product. Now, I know a lot of you have had trouble sublimating shirts. You've heard a lot of different things, different ways to go. I'm going to show you what was taught to me a long time ago that works in most cases. Now, the reason I say most cases is there are sometimes shirts that just will not sublimate properly. Now, I know that you would think that something that's 100% polyester, if you go to sublimate it, it's going to work and look great every time. It's just not true. There are some different things in the manufacturing process that sometimes affect the shirt and its ability to be sublimated. So keep that in mind, okay? You do have to find good quality polyester shirts to be able to sublimate them properly, all right? That is an important aspect. Okay. What I'm going to be using today is I'm going to be using a vapor spun polyester shirt. Spun polyester looks and feels like cotton, but it's actually 100% polyester, okay? So we're going to walk through the steps, and I'm going to tell you about each one of them as we go. This is the way I do it. If you want to do it differently, that's fine, okay? But this is the way that I do it. So first thing I want to do is actually create a design. So I'm going to go to my Creative Studio and set something up that we can sublimate. Now, in Creative Studio, I know some of you do use it, some of you don't. If you don't use it, you still got to follow me anyway. In Creative Studio, what I want to do is start with what I call a blank canvas, an area to work to set up my design. All right, so my first step here is I'm going to choose a workspace, which we call a design canvas, and I'm going to click on Design Canvas, and I want something related to maybe 11 by 17, so I'm just going to put in 11. And it did a search, and you can see here's one that's 11 by 17. Now, one of the neat things in Creative Studio, you see the little hearts, and if you use this all the time, if you click on the heart, it will save it in your favorites. Now, when you buy your Sawgrass system, this comes with it at no charge. If you have the standard Creative Studio, you have a limited number of favorites. If you have the premium Creative Studio, you have as many favorites as you want, which means as many red hearts as you want. And I find that feature very useful. So here it is. I've just made it a favorite. I've saved it, 11 by 17 portrait. I'll click on it and it comes onto the screen. Now I have to be a little careful because my paper is also 11 by 17. So we got to make sure it's smaller than the paper when we're creating this. Of course, if you make it larger, it's going to cut it off, right? But what I'm saying is what image we choose, we have to make sure the image does fit within that space properly. And that's going to fit on the shirt the right way. All right, so now let's go ahead and create the image. I'm going to go to designs. And in designs, this is where we have just a wide different range of suppliers, artists of really great artwork. And in my case, I'm going to go down to Great Dane Graphics. A lot of you know Dane. Dane does some really good work. In fact, all of our artists are really good. And under Great Dane Graphics, I'm going to go to premium designs, which comes with our premium membership, because I am a fishing guy, an outdoors guy. And for my t-shirt, I'm going to use a fish, even though it's got some really good dogs in there too, okay? We're going to take the bass here. And you see, again, I could have favored it if I wanted it to. And I'm going to select the bass, and then the bass is going to appear in my workspace. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than that, so we have plenty of room from the edges of the paper. And I'm going to move it up maybe right here. And then I want to add some text to it. So I'm going to go to the text button, and then I'm going to go to Creative Studio. You'll see two different folders. Creative Studio is all the fonts that come with Creative Studio. Uploaded is all the fonts that you can actually upload. If you have the premium version, you might have all kinds of cool fonts that you want to go ahead and put in there yourself. I'm going to use the Creative Studio fonts. Now, there are a bunch of them, okay? And it will drive me nuts to figure them all out, okay? I hate to tell you that. It's a good thing we got lots of them, but I can go on and on and on and on and on. So I just want you to see that down at the bottom, all these different pages. And again, I've done my favorites. So let's just go back to text here, okay? Because I'm going to make it quicker and go straight to my favorites. So in my favorites, I just have a few in here right now, but I'm going to take this particular one here because I played with it a little bit earlier and I thought it looked really good with the fish. So I'm just going to move it down here and I'm going to fill in on my text boxes. And it's going to be been there, caught that. You've heard of been there, done that, right? Been there, caught that. I've also, I've actually sold a lot of shirts with this particular logo on there. My other favorite one is been there, lost that. Okay, how many times have we done that, right? So I went ahead and typed that in and filled up my text box. And I'm going to make this larger just by changing the size. Again, not getting too close to the edge there. We're going to move it up underneath the fish a little bit closer. And now I'm going to go to the fill color because I want to make the text look a little bit more like the fish color. So I'm going to go to our color picker and I'm going to go into the greens and I'm just going to start working with it. There's a lot of green in the fish and trying to match the exact green is kind of difficult, but I am going to just work with something until it kind of catches my eye a little bit. And right now, kind of thinking maybe this will work because I'm going to add something else to it as well. The other thing is I want to make the lettering a little bit larger, but I don't want to make it wider. I want to make it a little bit taller, okay, just to fill in a little bit more space. So I'm going to go back and click on it, and I'm going to go turn off our color picker, and I'm going to click Lock Aspect Ratio, which is going to unlock it, which means now I can actually stretch it and make it just a little bit taller. There we go. Now I'm going to go to outline color and I'm going to choose the color black and I'm going to use what's called stroke, which is like putting an outline on something. That's basically what stroke is. And I just want to put a tiny bit. And it's hard to put just a tiny bit, but if I put a tiny bit, see, put too much. If you can get just a tiny bit in there, it adds a lot more to the lettering. So now the lettering really does look kind of like the color of the fish. So there we go. We have the fish and been there, caught that, okay? So now I'm ready to print this. I'm going to go up to my print button and I have to choose my printer and it already is up here, the SG-1000. Have to choose my paper size. That's very important. I'm going to be using the US tabloid, which is the 11 by 17. And I need to choose my material, which is polyester. I'm using TruePix paper, high quality print, and on color mode, I want to use vivid, not photographic, okay? Now we're going to click print. And what it's going to do is it's going to take that, process that, and it's going to send it to my Sawgrass print manager, which will then do the final preparations for the printer itself. And then we're going to print it out, and then we're going to walk through the steps of how to do this shirt the right way. All right, gave me a K on that. And now it's going into the queue. Takes just a minute, especially with my computer. I think I got the slowest one in the world here. So too bad my boss isn't tuned in to hear that part, but whatever. So anyway, it is processing. We're ready to start printing in just a minute. We hear that old familiar sound of the printer cranking up, and then the paper will come out the front, and we'll be ready to go on from there. Now, and there it goes. A couple of more things to give it. Polyester, for sure. We want to say preserve layout from designer. That means that everything I put in there in Creative Studio, it keeps all those dimensions. If I didn't choose that, it may actually change the dimensions based on the paper size. We can verify our paper size is 11 by 17, very important to do. Nothing there I need to change. Here the color is all right. Everything's ready to go. So I am going to print. And while it's getting ready to print, I'm going to check real quick. My heat press looks good. You'll notice a couple of things over here. So let's just talk over here for just a minute while that's getting ready to print. I have a couple of very important things here. I have a can of spray adhesive. Now, this is what we call temporary spray adhesive. It is designed to be hold something in place temporarily, okay, not for a long term. If you use something that's permanent, you're going to have problems because we're going to use this to put the transfer on the shirt. Make sure I get the transfer back off. We also have lint roller. Lint roller is very important because it helps pick up any stray, almost microscopic fibers that were left behind during the manufacturing process. Anything like that, when you actually go through the heat press, has a tendency to turn into little blue specks. You might have heard about the blue specks. Now, I think blue specks are cool, because I'm a marketing guy. So if there was blue specks on the shirt, I'm going to tell the customer, listen, I'm not going to charge you extra this time, but this is a new special effect called Sublimation Bling. See, they may want it next time. You would never be able to recreate it. So don't go that way. You just want to avoid them at all costs. Okay, we got it printing out here, and I'll wait till it prints out before I continue with the shirt, just because of the extra noise involved. Almost done, and there we go. All right, so next steps will be to set up your heat press. Now, when we're doing 100% polyester shirts, it's customary not to use 400 degrees, first of all. I typically use anywhere from 380 to 385 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it, okay? We want our heat lower, right? So I have mine set right now at 385 degrees. We do our time less. And the range of time can be anywhere from 30 seconds, believe it or not, up to about 45 seconds. I'm set at 40 seconds for that. Now, one of the most important things is our foam, okay? We have a sheet of foam here that is going to help tremendously, and I can explain what and how in just a minute, but I want you to look at the foam. And the foam here is a high temperature foam, which is available from your dealer, okay? It can be reused many times, probably about 100 times, until it starts to flatten out, lose its shape. You buy it in a large roll, and then you just cut it to fit. Now, this must also always be larger than the image, but smaller than the sheet of paper. Okay, again, larger than the image, smaller than the sheet of paper. And that's always going to be laid down here. Now, this is also a good tool to help you set the pressure. I want you to notice that when I close the heat press and put it down, that the pressure is so low that I can move the heat press without even opening it. That's how low we want the pressure to be. The way to help you set the pressure is if you actually just take this and put it in the very corner and then just close this down without a shirt on it and just look at it, you don't want to compress the foam by any more than a half. And I actually would like to tighten that down just a little bit more. The foam should never be compressed by more than a half, okay? In other words, we want very light pressure. We're doing that all on purpose. Now, why are we doing that? Well, if you've sublimated a shirt before, there's a good chance you've had what we call transfer lines. And a transfer line is essentially a very thin, almost like a crease in the shirt that is usually where the edges of your transfer paper came in contact with the shirt. So, for example, when I lay this on the shirt here, a transfer line would occur right where the edges of the paper dug into the shirt. Now, why did that happen? When we're up in that upper 300 to 400 degree range, the polyester fibers actually start to melt, not like liquid melt, okay? They don't run all over the heat press. But what happens is just the texture becomes softer such that the edges of the paper are digging into it and they're leaving a permanent indention in there. And so this is what we're trying to avoid by going through things like different settings on the heat press, using the foam. Those things together are what are going to help you not have the transfer lines, okay? So that's why we're doing all of this. Okay, so let's proceed on here. The first thing I like to do is simply just get some of the wrinkles out. When we're doing sublimation, in the case of standard sublimation, you do not want to heat the shirt up and make it hot. If this shirt was hot and I put this on top and I was trying to move it around, it would start heating up the sublimation ink, giving off gas, and you may ghost onto the fabric. Always a bad idea, okay? But in order for me to get rid of the wrinkles, I typically would do what? Put it on the heat press for just a few seconds and see if we can get rid of some of those wrinkles so we have a smooth surface for where we're going to set it up. So what you saw there was what? 2-3 seconds, and it's plenty warm, let me tell you. But it also got off just enough of the wrinkles to make me happy, okay? So that's what I do for preparing for sublimation on a 100% polyester shirt, all right? All right, now we want to take a lint roller, and with the lint roller, we want to roll every part of the shirt that is underneath the platen, not just where the paper is going to go, but where the entire platen would go. So just take it and just start lightly rolling it all the way across the surface, and it should pick up any stray fabric pieces left over from production so we don't have those good old blue specks, okay? Next thing I want to do is I'm going to lay this over on the foam. You do not put the foam inside shirt, okay? A lot of people make that mistake. It's not needed inside. You can lay the shirt totally over it. And see, the beauty of it is you can see, actually, once I lay it on there, you can see the foam. So it's not hard to line everything up. If you're going to do a lot of shirts, put a little bit of tape on the bottom of the foam and hold it in place, or maybe even use some of your spray to hold it into place. Just makes it easier to set everything up. So that's looking pretty good there. Next thing I will traditionally do is not use heat tape, okay? I don't use heat tape on the shirt because when you try to get it off, it stretches the shirt, and that causes ghosting. What is ghosting, in case you're new? Ghosting is if the paper moves when it's hot because the gas is still coming out. If it moves on the shirt, think of it as like a smear. It's not really exactly a smear, but it moves and leaves sort of a ghostly image where it shouldn't be, okay? And you got to understand that if I don't use spray, when I put this on here and I close the heat press, even with very light pressure, it's pushing it down. But when you open the heat press, it's almost like a vacuum pulling it up. And as you're pulling it up, there's a tendency for it to slide just a little bit, which means it could easily ghost. So what I'm going to use is a little bit of spray. Remember, this isn't about permanently affixing to anything. You see how far back I'm holding this? All I want is just a little bit of light stick. That's it. Just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit to help hold it in place. And now I'm going to come over here and line this up with my foam. And remember, as I said before, the foam has to be smaller than the paper, larger than the image. And I can see the image, I can see the foam. Everything looks good there. I am going to get a sheet of blowout paper. Again, if you're new, blowout paper, make sure that any stray gas that was to come out of this wouldn't end up on the heat press platen. Also, if there was any kind of contamination on the heat press platen, it wouldn't end up on the shirt. Okay. All righty, here we go. Time to press. Away we go. Shouldn't take long. Counting down. Got about 24 seconds left. Now I'm going to tell you a few other tips along the way too after we get the shirt done. Because really and truly, shirt sublimation should not be a nightmare. It really shouldn't. But I will tell you, a lot of times people go out and they start shopping for very inexpensive shirts, and they get very inexpensive shirts. They get cheap shirts that don't sublimate well. So always having a good quality shirt makes a difference. Okay, we'll open it up. We'll pull off our blowout sheet. And now what we're going to do is we want to make sure that when we pull the paper off, it's a nice clean pull because there's adhesive involved. We pull that off and we pull the shirt off. And right now I can tell you there's no transfer line whatsoever. What you can see is because we were applying heat with a platen. Right now you can see where the platen was, but there is no transfer line. And as the shirt cools off, it will be no extra lines except you got a nice fish and lettering. So the shirt came out just the way that we wanted it to come out. There is no transfer line, again, as I was saying, just from the heat and the pressure of pushing it down. But you can see when I pull with my hands right here, there's no lines. If there was a true transfer line, you could not pull it out. It would look like just a razor little seam all the way around. You cannot get it out. Trust me, I tried everything. But there is one way to get it out. If you have a pair of scissors, oh, here we go. If you get a pair of scissors and you cut that whole section out, there's no more transfer line, and there's no more shirt either. Okay, couple of tips. If you're going to do shirt production, you just pulled a shirt off that is at approximately 385 degrees, okay? And you would have had another shirt ready to go, and you would already put it on there, okay? And so as soon as that next shirt comes off, and let's just get one for pretend. Let's say this is the one that just came off, all right? Just for fun. Now, I just want you to think about this. It's only on there for about 40 seconds, right? This thing's still kind of warm. If I lay this on top of it, which is sort of a natural tendency, if this is still cooling down, it may leave an image on the back of this shirt. And so I've heard stories of people having a dozen shirts stacked up. And the more you stack in shirts, the more insulated the pile becomes and it retains the heat. So what you want to do is when you're sublimating multiple shirts, as they come off, lay them down side by side so that they cool off so you don't accidentally get ink from one onto the other. Simple, easy little trick, okay? If you're going to do a 50-50, 50% polyester, 50% cotton, you actually don't have to go through all those steps I went through. Transfer lines aren't generally a problem. We don't to have to use foam. We typically use more of a medium pressure and 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 50 seconds or so. So you can certainly do that with that. So we can do blends pretty well without having to do all these extra little things. But 100% polyester, this is what we need to do. But as you can see, I got a great design right there. So if I'm selling to the fishing market, we can make money with that. So those are the main tips for you. Again, final thing, just want to repeat it one more time. I think I've said it about 5 times. Good quality shirts, okay? Good quality shirts. I mean, they do cost more. Keep in mind, okay, when people talk about t-shirts, one of the things you got to be careful of is people are used to buying t-shirts that are screen printed. And screen printers typically can produce a low price point, and those shirts are usually 100% cotton or 50-50, and they're running at a lower price point, okay? When you take a shirt like this is 100% cotton. This is 100% polyester. There's no cotton in it whatsoever. But this shirt actually breathes, okay? Because it is built of a material that allows for your body to be able to perspire, and it's moisture wicking and it pulls it away. That automatically makes it worth more money. If you go into Dick's Sporting Goods and you buy something from Under Armour, it's $25 for a t-shirt or more. So this is actually in a different class than your everyday t-shirt. Keep that in mind. Number 2, the sublimation will not crack, peel, or fade when washed. That's not going to happen with other processes. That won't happen. But here, we're never going to crack, peel, fade, or wash. By the way, if you do a 50-50, first time you wash it, it will fade some. Just keep that in mind. So when you are selling these types of products, okay, keep in mind that it is a different one than a 50-50 or 100% cotton that was screen printed or DTG. Totally a different class all its own. Keep those things in mind, okay, when you do this and sell it for the right price point. Okay, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. T-shirts, sublimated, look great, easy to do.
I'm gonna go too.
So thanks for tuning in with me. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks. Bye.
And of course, I'm still here.
Well, Jimmy, you've got a lot of questions. Can you see through the chat?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to figure out where they're at. So just give me 1 second here. Your screen is paused. We'll stop the share, so we don't need that now.
You can click on the chat button right next to the share button.
Oh, look, there's a chat button right next to the share button, just like you said. So, oh boy, where do I start? These things are really rolling in. Okay. Wow. Okay. I am going to go back really to the beginning and start going from there. So graphs on the house selling. So everything, that does sound really creepy. It was. Okay. I know a lot of the beginning was just that, hey, here we are kind of stuff. So just give me a second. I'll get down to where I start seeing your classes. So classes, let's see, I was reading and speaking and getting it all wrong. I can do two things at once, but every now and then. Let's see. Still talking about rockets, vanilla ice cream float. Yeah, that's, you got to get further down here, but I'm working on it. Just give me a moment here. Okay. Okay, does spray adhesive leave residue? Great question. No, I haven't had any problems with residue. In fact, I'm going to tell you something else. I had a chance with one of the dealers that carried a lot of in-house spray products, adhesive spray products. And they let me take one of each one off the shelf, which cost them money. But what we did is we actually experimented on non-apparel. We were actually taking like some of the wooden framed award panels that Unisub makes. And we actually found one of them was made by Albatross. Albatross makes it specifically for screen printers that didn't even leave a residue on a hard surface. Okay, where most of them on a hard surface would leave a residue. That one did not leave a residue on a hard surface. Very interesting, but I haven't found one that really does on the apparel. The main thing with the apparel is to not use much, just a tiny bit, okay? Yeah, I see somebody else chimed in, light dusting of spray, that's important. Do you have to use Sawgrass's program or can you print via Photoshop? Absolutely, you can print via Photoshop, pretty much anything you want. What you do have to use is the Sawgrass Print Manager, which you download to your computer, and you print through it, okay? But as far as your design software, pretty much anything you want out there, as long as the final file to go to Sawgrass Print Manager is a bitmap, JPEG, PNG, a TIFF, or a PDF, okay? So like you couldn't send a CDR to it if you were in CorelDRAW or a PSD, you know, so you do have to, you know, have one of those formats, but you can design in anything you want. Do you always have to choose your material I was told you didn't have to if you use a template in Creative Studio. I would always choose the material personally. It's, you got to make sure, and I know we've been trying to make Creative Studio and Print Manager talk more to each other so that you have less choices to make. I'm just one out of habit. I'm always going to choose the material. It's part of color management because what's happening inside the Print Manager is it's understanding that different materials may require a different laydown of ink and et cetera. So the material is pretty important. By the way, there was just several comments about me showing the pressure with the foam. What I actually do, I didn't do it there, but on my own personal setup, I have a little square piece of foam. Not like that's a square, right? I can't make a square with my fingers. But anyway, I have a square piece of foam just about that big that I cut, and it's specifically for the one thing, to put it in the corner of the heat press to be able to set the pressure. And it just sits under the heat press there all the time. And I cut it so it's just nice and neat and easy to do. Because one of the things I didn't mention about cutting foam is when we actually cut that foam that we're going to use on the shirt, we actually take the scissors and bevel the edges so that the edges are angled. Okay, so the little one that I use for setting up the press, calibrating the press, I don't angle the edges. It's easier to see when you squish it, how much you're squishing it. Yeah, I'm terrible with pressure. I always think I need more. I know it's kind of scary on this, you know, just how light the pressure is and how well it comes out. So, yeah, don't be scared. What you need is a good print. That's all we need, good print. Are there any good lint rollers? All the ones I bought are terrible. You know, I don't know. I just get them at Walmart and whatever. But the key on it is you got to keep tearing off the, you know, the little squares. You know, that's one of the things that people start using them, and then they don't stay sticky very long. You know, and that's why you got to rip it off and do it, and rip it off, and do it. You know, or it's not going to pick up anything. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. There have been times I didn't use one. There's no guarantee you're gonna get the blue specks if you don't roll it. Okay, it's just what we're trying to do is making sure that 1 in 10 times where you would get blue specks, you don't get them. I mean, you know, that's what we're trying to say there. We know it can happen. We just don't know it's going to happen every time. Somebody suggested the 3M lint roller. Somebody else gets theirs at Lowe's. Oh, and Amazon, and on and on and on. You know, you're a good bunch because you're helping each other here, and I love seeing that because I was not looking at the chat because I had a full screen here, so I couldn't see the chat at all, and I just had made the decision I wasn't going to talk to you until I got to the end. Then I would go through it all. So you guys are helping each other a lot. I really appreciate that. It's always great to be with a good bunch of people who are willing to help each other. You know, I'm not going to reveal my age, but when I first got into the business of product decoration, there weren't any magazines. There weren't any trade shows like there are now. I mean, the trade shows then were more like textile trade shows. And if you try to ask people for help, they laughed at you, you know, and then go out the way. And it's so different now because we got communities and people share and everything else, and it's just wonderful. Somebody asked what type or brand of shirt. That happened to be a Vapor Apparel shirt. There are other good shirts out there. I mean, I know a lot of people complain they feel like the Vapor is a little pricey. There's certainly some other good ones out there, but I would test it before I decided to sell it. Okay. I mean, don't go and look in the Sandmar catalog and say, oh, look, it's 100% polyester. Oh, there's the price. And then you go out and sell it, and then you order it, and then you find out it doesn't sublimate well. Okay. So it's always important that if you're going to, whatever shirt you want to use, get a sample or two, test sublimate it, make sure it works well and you're happy with it before you start selling it. Okay. That's important because, you know, people come to me and they say, I just cannot get a good sublimation on, you know, shirts. And I say, what brand are you using? you won't believe the names of things I've heard, and I've never heard of it. I mean, people come with this name like, blah, 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 and I'm like, what's that? You know, I mean, it's like, you know, I was expecting to hear Gildan or Hanes or something like that, and it's some brand I've never in my life heard of. And so that's usually the first place we start is chain shirts. Anyway, question about pressure. I have DK20s. What is considered light, medium, heavy? Oh, that's such a great question, because, you know, heavy pressure for me, it might be like impossible pressure for someone else. I mean, I'm a big guy, right? So for me, heavy, if I put my weight into it, you know, that's heavy, right? There might be somebody who can't even open it. So, I mean, our versions of light, heavy, medium, it's crazy. I mean, there is a standard for medium pressure, which is 40 PSI. Okay, how many people have a PSI gauge on their heat press? Okay, so that doesn't help you at all. So it's really hard to say. And it says, what is considered based on the number that shows when pressing? Now, I don't have a DK20 that has any number on the pressing. Now, I know that Stahl's has some heat presses that have numbers, and they can tell you what the numbers supposedly correspond to. And there may be a few others. If you have an pneumatic heat press, obviously a pneumatic heat press, you're dialing in air pressure. The downside of a pneumatic heat press is you can't get the pressure low enough because it's always going to close all the way. That's just the way it's designed. It's not designed to not close all the way. So pneumatics can be a little tricky with shirts. I have a little trick there, and that's put in spacers so it can't close all the way. Okay, that's about what you can do there. But you know, if you have something that has any numbers on the heat press, you talk to the manufacturer and let them give you, you know, anything there. But I really, light, medium, heavy is an experimentation on your part. I'm sorry, that's not a good answer. And that's probably, David's probably got a better answer to it than me. But I know I'm up at pretty much at the end of my time. So let me just check a couple of other things here real quick and then wrap up so they have time to get ready for, you know, the next presentation. And then again, David may have some really good insight on that pressure thing. Gosh, you guys did a really good job. You didn't need me to answer your questions. You answered them all for me. Does the color bleed through the shirt because the pressure's wrong? Good shirts, I've never had them bleed through. Okay. Now, does that mean I've never seen it bleed through? I've seen it bleed through in shirts, but they usually weren't very good shirts. So I haven't had a problem with bleed through on shirts, but I've always worked with better shirts. I mean, as far as, I mean, I've seen it and then that's not a good shirt to me, so I don't use it. Let's put it that way. Okay. Is there a colored poly spun available? Yes, there are colored ones. So it's probably, you tell me when I got to cut off. I mean, I'm still scanning, but I know that, you know.
You have 9 minutes.
Oh, I have 9 minutes. Okay, good. I was thinking I had to end at 1:40. Well, 1:40 my time. So okay, I was rushing there. Oh, I could sit back and have something to drink and a snack and everything. Where do you buy the foam? You buy the foam from Condi. Condi sells the foam. Don't go to a local craft store and buy the foam. It may not work. And here's why. The foam that is being sold by Condi is, it was actually created by Vapor Apparel, because when the guys at Vapor Apparel started making shirts, they made shirts 100% totally for sublimation, nothing else. And they knew about transfer lines, and they knew that in order for people to buy their shirt and be successful with their shirt, they had to get rid of transfer lines. And so they're the ones who really came up with that methodology. They're the ones who actually taught me. And so the foam that they have is heat resistant foam. And some of the craft foams may not work well at, 385 degrees. So that's why I say stick with the foam that you buy from Condi. because it was actually manufactured specifically for this purpose. Okay, somebody said, I don't understand. This is when I was talking about the Sawgrass Print Manager. I create in Corel Draw and send it to Print Manager. Is that not a CDR? Well, what a CDR is a CDR, first of all, a proprietary file of Corel Draw. So CDR is a vector file that's created within Corel Draw. So Corel Draw can read that, but there's virtually no other program that can read it because it's in a proprietary format. So if you're really going to go print that, it always gets converted, because printers, such as the Sawgrass printers, they print, they don't print vector files, they print bitmap files. So it has to convert to a bitmap file anyway. So typically, if you are working in Corel Draw, you would save it as a CDR, okay? But if you go to print in Corel Draw and you have it hooked to a printer, most times Corel Draw is converting it before it goes out. Now, in the case of the Sawgrass printer, you're going to see the Sawgrass Print Manager in your list of printers, and you have to make sure that you're converting the file yourself to being, you know, a JPEG, PNG, BMP, TIF, or a PDF before you send it out, or the Sawgrass Print Manager won't see it. Okay, I mean, it won't understand it. So, but that's true of pretty much any system. The proprietary files don't just automatically print, and vector files don't automatically print. Here's a good comment. Probably everybody read it, because I know you were looking at the chat the whole time, but, you know, costly mistake for us. Do not sublimate on colored Sport Tech Posi Charge apparel. They look great on the table after pressing. However, when you put it on, you'll see the heat made the color shirt transparent. We had an order of 80 safety green for a landscaper. Okay, let me tell you, that's a great thing you brought up. Let me tell you a little bit more about that. I learned about, because as soon as you just said, I saw in there safety green, okay. We were working with some fluorescent yellow, 100% polyester shirts. And when we went to sublimate them, everywhere that the heat press platen came in contact with that fluorescent yellow shirt, it changed the color of the fluorescent yellow to sort of a brownish fluorescent yellow. And I was like, what the heck happened? And I called one of my textile friends, and he said, oh, he said, yeah, the way that we get fluorescent dye to work in fabric, okay, because they're going to dye the fabric before they make the shirt. He says, we put something there called a brightener, and the brightener is what gives it the fluorescence. He says, what were you pressing it at? And I was like, 385 degrees. Oh, no. You can't go over 300 degrees with brighteners. You know, it will change their color. And that's what happened. So typically you got to be very careful if you're looking to sublimate anything fluorescent, because there's a good chance it can't handle the heat, and it will do. They had a problem. I saw that problem. So I've stayed away from fluorescent shirts. If it's something that you think you want to get into, then you're going to have to buy some fluorescent shirt samples and try them out to see if it can handle the heat or not. That's just some of those things in the manufacturing process that nobody tells you, because most manufacturers, they just made a shirt. They weren't thinking about sublimation. And that's an interesting thing, and also a challenge for us, that manufacturers make apparel to be worn. They don't always think about product decoration. So we're the ones who figure out the hard way. Yeah, I've seen some more comments on it now as I scroll down. Jimmy, what does ink paper cost per shirt using Sawgrass? It depends on the design. I mean, the ink cost is about a half a penny per square inch, you know. So and paper depends on which brand you're buying. You know, well, I'm not in the business of selling paper, so I don't keep up with paper prices, but I think a sheet of paper might be 20 cents if it's 8.5 by 11, but I'm not positive. Sprite would probably know that. I'm not sure, but you know, the ink costs, I mean, so many times, and that's a whole nother subject I don't want to get into, you know, but when I start talking about where all the true costs are, we typically find that ink comes out to about 7% of the total cost of sublimation production. When you're actually looking at your substrates and everything else that goes into your total overhead for production, that there's so many other cost factors that a lot of times we don't even notice that really eat up the pricing on stuff. Is it better to spray the adhesive on the shirt or the print? Do it on the print, not the shirt. This is a good question for all of you. What shirts from Alpha or Samar have you all used that work well? And there may be answers down further. I just haven't gotten past that question yet. I know there's one that I just got a sample sent to me. It may have arrived already today. I forgot what it was, but I was looking for heavier weight stuff. And my friends at Samar are always welcome to help me on that. It's a 4.8 ounce. And it was an ST something. I can't think of what it is. But anyway, sorry, that helped you a whole lot, didn't it? But anyway, always looking, you know, for that. And then I can share it with other people. There was a question about using the foam pillow, and I've not used a foam pillow. So hopefully some of the other people maybe in the chat have.
Yeah, we don't recommend the Teflon because of the moisture.
Okay.
But we are at about that time, Jimmy.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This was
my pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so hopefully we will see you very soon. Thank you again.
Okay. Thanks everybody for coming out. Have a wonderful day and a great weekend. And I hope to see every one of you in person a year from now, down there in good old Alabama in that hot, muggy weather that they always have. The hottest, muggiest day of the year is the day of the Conde open house. And we'll all sweat together.
You're a great accent. Okay.
Okay. Sounds familiar.
A little bit. All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay. Thanks. See ya.